I just hit it on my end.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second episode. I'm just going live on Instagram. So welcome, everyone, to our second episode of Illumi-Nation. We deeply appreciate all of you who are showing up. As you know, this new piece is new for us. So we're still learning technology, but we're very excited. We launched last week. We are going to try to watch all of our streamings so that we can answer questions, because we really encourage participation. I'm Susan Casey. I am a psychic intuitive therapist. You guys might know me from my podcast that I have done over the last 2.5 years, Rock Your Shine. And I am delighted that I have partnered up with my spiritual teacher and friend, Valerie Moon Healing.
Hi.
And I'll have her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Valerie Moon. I'm so excited to be doing this and sharing some much needed information as everybody is on this journey of connection.
Yes, and this came about because Valerie and I would have long conversations after my own healing sessions with her, and we just decided that we needed to start sharing this with people. We hear all of the different buzzwords out there, and the spiritual gurus, and always talking about energy and manifestation and all of these different things. And so we decided to create a platform where we could really encourage real-time participation. And so today, we are going to start at the basics, and we're going to be talking about energy, vibration, manifestation. What does that all mean?
Yeah, so I did have some people hop on the live from last week, and there was some really awesome questions about energy and how it actually affects our reality. And I thought that would be a really great thing to dive into and answer some of those questions that kind of came up from last week's live stream that we did.
Excellent. So why don't we start there? And before we do, I want to share with everyone that today is Valentine's Day, and it is the 10th year anniversary of my brother Rocky's death. And lots of stuff comes up on the holidays, doesn't it, around grief and loss and how it impacts our energy. And so today just feels the perfect day for us to be talking about this. So Valerie, why don't you kick us off and talk to us about your definition of what we mean when we talk about energetic vibration?
I think that first of all, I just want to take a moment to honor your moment, really, because, there's so much that comes up for people, especially even around a holiday like this, where it's known as a couple's holiday and, love. And it's very much, it can bring up a lot of emotions for people, certainly. But yeah, I think some of that also comes with the idea of twin flame stuff. And I was actually watching a great upload from another practitioner, and I think it's definitely something we should dive into during one of these shows, because it's really a fascinating understanding for many people, and there's just a lot of mixed emotions with it. But when it comes to energy and how it affects the body, for me, for what I know to be true from my experiences, it's like an accumulation. You have so you have Merlin always has a lot to say when the
I love when the dogs chime in.
It's unreal. It's the mailman's out there, and you know what happens? The mailman will leave him snacks out there sometimes, and so he doesn't want to miss his moment. So he's like, let me outside. But anyhow, when it comes to energy, though, it's like an accumulation for me. So what I see when I'm doing energy work is you have your experiences from this life. So let's say you are having an experience and it triggers a vibration in you and it reminds you of another moment. It's like all of this information is kind of, the way I see it, is kind of like an energetic filing cabinet, right? And so I call that imprints, right? So you have all your energetic memories of everything you've experienced, and then you can have past lives that can affect your energy, or ancestral trauma that can affect your energy. And I think that in any given moment, that those different energies can all be triggered at the same time to have a reaction.
Yeah, and I love that, and a lot of the work that I do with my clients is really, also helping them to understand just that when we are triggered by something, it is an opportunity for us to take a breath before we react. I always, and this is the way I think about, living consciously rather than subconsciously. Subconsciously, we're triggered, we don't know why, and we react. And when we take a moment to understand how we actually feel by the experience we're having, and that which may trigger a memory of when we felt that very similar energy, it allows us that opportunity to honor the feeling that we're having with the perception of that experience and to let it go, right? This
Right.
is how we grow in our awareness and in our expansion of what triggers us. What are we holding in our energy centers, chakras, for right? Um,
Right.
and I would love to actually even start there, Valerie, kind of for some of our listeners who may have heard these buzzwords, chakras, vibration, things like that. What do we mean when we talk about chakras? Oh, look at that beautiful, look at
Listen, so
that beautiful graphic.
you do. I know, it's literally, it was just sitting here. But when it comes to imprints or whatever on any given moment, you have a situation that reminds you of something. And as an energy healer or people that understand energy, that energy leads a behavior, right? And so, like when you go to a wedding, for example, this is like the best way to describe how energy can shift, and it can shift your thoughts and it can shift your reality. Let's say you're a divorcee and you're just like, I'm never going to get married again. Like, it was so horrible. I'm like independent woman, blah, blah, blah. And like all of a sudden you're invited to a wedding. You're still feeling the same way. You walk into the ceremony and this energy in the space is so abundant and all the love is there and everything is so beautiful. And all of a sudden this energy is just like kind of creeping in and reminding us of this beautiful moment that we experienced before. And all of a sudden you may find yourself shifting from, well, maybe I would give that a try again. Like your reality changes. Where you're so dead set on something. And then once this energy is flowing through you, you might have a different understanding or a different belief. And then sometimes it can just like die back down and go away. And it's really powerful. When it comes to like negative experiences, I find that it can really throw off your chakras. And I don't know if you want to chime in and share anything about that, but let's say you had a trauma, for example, or even just like a negative patterns that might affect your existence. And it creates your energy centers to maybe go overactive or underactive. Each energy center really affects you in a different way. So I don't know if you want to share anything about that or what you know that to be.
Well, and I think so. So talking about the energy centers, just so that we are all on the same page, our energy centers start at the base of our spine and they go up through our crown, right? So we've got root, sacral, solar plexus, the heart chakra, throat, third eye, and crown. And maybe what we can do too is just spend an episode just going through those different centers. But what
Yeah.
I do with my clients when they are having a reaction to something or really um, or really struggling with something in their life, we look at where the block could be in one of those chakra centers, right? Because they're all responsible for different things that we hold within our body. And so whether something amazing is happening in our life and it sparks deep joy or resonance of joy, you talk about the wedding, or if it triggers something really horrific and we actually, so it might be that your husband or your wife or your partner says something to you, you react, but your reaction is so overblown in comparison to what is just happening, right? That's what we call a trigger. I think we all know what we mean by that language. And all of a sudden you're reacting and your partner's like, whoa, I just asked you how your day went today, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
fly up. That is always an indicator to me. Where could I have a block in one of my energy centers based on that trigger, what it feels like? Is it in my root chakra around my safety, etc.? And so the universe is just a mirror, right? So when we
Right.
talk about energy, it's only mirroring back to us whatever it is that we're putting out there, because everything starts with thought and then it turns into a physical manifestation. So that's why you'll hear, when you listen to different channels, people talking about what happens to us is always for us. It's always for us.
Right.
So, and when you get a mirror, it's just giving you information about something that's happening for you and within you. What did you want
Yeah.
to add, Val?
Yeah, just understanding the chakras on a deeper level can help you even know yourself, right? So, if you're triggered in a wound of safety and your root chakra goes overactive, you're going to probably feel frustration or anger. So each chakra actually can carry different traits that will come out of us in different ways. Let's say your throat chakra is underactive, you might want to like just crawl into a ball and not want to talk, right? Or it could be overactive where we can say a whole lot of stuff that people aren't really, it's just and so I mean each chakra carries different character traits, and keeping that energy and balance can support our balance too. I know that one of the things that someone had mentioned outside of imprints was like, how does a past life affect your energy center and your reality? So the same way imprints is going to affect your reality, your behavior, your understanding of what's around you, the same thing can happen with a past life. So for those of you that do believe in past lives and you have an understanding of that, if a past life is triggering you in one of your chakra system, and that energy and memory of that moment is flowing through you, it's very similar to what an imprint would do, and how that would affect your reality. And so if you've come to uh, learn certain skills or tools around rejection or releasing insecurity, stepping into your confidence, whatever, let's say you've had experiences of a past life that was very similar, this is going to affect you in the same way. And I don't know if I'm saying that in a way that's like comprehensible or if I just kind of lost it somewhere.
No, I'm following. I think that I think just being really sensitive to who is listening and who will be watching this later. I think what I'd like to do intuitively, I'd like to go back to the chakras because I think that this is such a critical piece in understanding our energetic flow in our body.
Mhm.
So maybe what we could do, what do you think about going through them and talking about the energy that's held within each of those, just to give all of our listeners a grounding in what we mean about these 7 energy centers in our body?
Yeah, yeah. So I know with your root chakra, it's very much your physical experience. This is your material experience, your sexual experience. It's very much like this moment, right? So this physical living experience. And so I'm
Safety,
not sure if you,
our security, how
yeah,
stable do we feel
exactly.
in our life? Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. With the sacral chakra, and I don't know, you can pipe in on any one of these too. I'll finish the sacral since I just started it, but really like your emotions, your creative energy, your relationships, your ability to have those types of interactions. So again, these lower chakras are very much your physical experience in this life. And the effects of these chakras being out of balance has a very physical experience for you too. I don't know if you want to add anything
Yeah,
there.
let me just add in then. So let's start at the root. So in all of that, there's a color that's attributed to each one of our chakras.
Right.
So the root is red, the sacral is a beautiful orange. But let me just give a couple examples. If you're out of balance in these areas, so for the root, you might feel scattered, have scattered energy or anxiety or being very fearful of life. In our sacral chakra, it could be, you're withholding maybe sexual dysfunction, or you're withholding intimacy, or you feel emotionally isolated from people. And so Valerie is talking about, when we feel balanced in the root, we feel very secure in our world. And in our sacral, we feel very creative. We've got a great sexual,
Joy and
sexual, yeah.
authenticity really shines through.
Yeah. And so these are just indicators to you again just the more you become aware of these energy centers, when you have an experience and you have an emotion attached to it, take a moment to honor your human experience and the feelings that come with it, because it's the universe. Your higher guidance system is always giving you information. They are communicating, you know, our higher consciousness is always communicating with our human experience. And while we're going through these, it's just giving you information when things come up for you. May you have a block in one of these areas, and it brings it from the subconscious to the conscious, and that's where you can let it go. So Valerie, let's go to solar.
Oh yeah. So the solar plexus, it's like thought to action, your intentions, your ability to, you know, take what's in here and create a reality for it. You know, it is your will, your motivation, the determination. That color is yellow, right? And so you can find if it's over or underactive, you'll have different symptoms, right? Or different experiences. Sometimes if you have an overactive, you know, solar plexus, you might be somebody that is very ego driven, or like has that need to be right, or condescending and very self-focused, or somebody that's underactive may have like a real lack of confidence. So there's like a lot to how the energy affects you. So like what we're saying, if you have a moment that reminds you of something that happened and that energy starts pulling to the surface, and it might shift your energy center, it's not going to be the same for everybody, right? So how that affects me is not going to be the same as how it affects you and your experiences.
Yeah, beautifully said. You know, and this, and as you said earlier, you know, if it's out of balance or there are blocks there, this is where it can show up as very low self-esteem, maybe having some control issues, manipulative tendencies. Manipulation is just a word that has really negative connotations, but for me, we all manipulate at one point or another, because it is just about figuring out how to get our needs met, and often on a subconscious level, right? We're just doing what we need to do to get those needs met. And just quickly, again, root is at the base of the spine. The sacral chakra is right below your navel. And then your solar plexus is below your chest. And now we'll move into my favorite, the heart chakra.
The heart chakra is very love based. Your connection and your bridge between the lower chakras, which is your very physical experience, and then the bridge to the higher chakras, which is more of your spiritual experience, right? And so it is about self-love, love, compassion, empathy, all those beautiful things that we're all trying to connect to in this lifetime.
And you know, this is really, I mean, you guys can imagine, right? The heart is all about relationships, and I'm working, you know, I work with a lot of different clients, and typically it's around grief and loss, and grief is a very dense energy, and it's very important that we leave space. We cannot run away from our grief and our sadness, and we can only digest emotion in the heart. You know, we cannot think of feeling, we can only feel a feeling. And I know those who you follow me, you've heard me say that ad nauseum, but it's the truth. And we often want to run away when things feel hard, especially when it comes to relationships. We get wounded very early on in our life. We you know, if we could, we have that first love that breaks our heart, and we make a contract with ourselves. I'm never going to love that way again. I'm never going to allow myself to get hurt that way again. And of course, life is about learning to open our heart and surrendering to this amazing life that we live in. We have to have the contrast, guys. That's experiences. We are here to experience life. We have to have the contrast so that we can choose our preference. And the heart chakra is, most of us walk around with a closed heart because we learn early on that we want to learn how to protect it. So this does govern all of our relationships. Did you want to?
I
Yeah,
think
please.
what I would add to that is, as we're talking about how different energy would affect that, is if we did have a heartbreak, or we did have a trauma in love, or we did have these really intense moments, and we program ourselves, or we're watching our parents, you know, and their relationship from a young age, And we have this program, whether it's through our experiences or through what society tells us is actually normal, so you have, oh, this is how you're supposed to live. This is what you're supposed to do, these social constructs. And that program is running through us. That program also affects our energy, right? And our thoughts around our belief systems very much affects our energy. So it's not even just the imprints that could surface, or our energetic memories or past lives, like we're talking about, ancestral traumas. Like that program of what's normal very much is going to shift our reality.
100%. And I want to go back to, just something that I had said earlier, because I want listeners to really hear what I'm talking about when I say leaving space for our feelings. We learn very early on to judge, right? We very early, like when we're very little, we're good or bad. What we're doing is good or bad. So we're always getting messages. Are we being good? Are we being bad? And then we learn how to judge other people as a result of that. And so what happens as we grow and as we have an experience, if we think we're a good person, we wouldn't have these awful thoughts. And so we not only don't allow ourselves the space to feel whatever we're feeling authentically as a human being, we then judge the feeling that we're having. And so we have judgment upon judgment rather than honoring those experiences and loving the human self through the experience they're having. I call this soothing the baby. One analogy I use is that if you've got a child in the other room and they're crying, you're not going to go in there and hit the baby, right? But this is what we do to ourselves. We're hurting, and then we go in and we beat ourselves up with all of these judgments that we have around the feelings that we're having.
I noticed that judgments for me, whether it's of yourself or of other people, it really is basically the biggest way we can find out what our wounds are, even the ones we're hiding from ourselves. If I'm judging you or I'm judging somebody else, it's definitely my wound, because what I judge and what you judge are two very different things, and so I really deeply believe that judgment is a great way to start if you're somebody that is trying to dive into shadow work, because we hide a lot from ourselves. So if you find yourself judging somebody or yourself and you journal on that judgment, it's not about the other person. It never is about the story or the experience as much as it is about yourself and your energy and how things are affecting you.
Yeah, and I always say, guys, if when you're being triggered and that person is in front of you and you want to do the attack, just imagine your own face on their face, because it's just a mirror to you to give you information about something that's going on for you. You've called it into your life. There are no victims. And this is, and I'm sure if this can spark a lot of emotion when I say that there are no victims, but we'll get deeper into that at a later time. Let's move on to the throat chakra.
The throat chakra is really about being authentic, speaking your truth, communicating in your truth. Communication is not always just with your words, and so it's also that connection to creating a reality for yourself, also, right? Through the communication, whether it's in your mind, your words, the way you're speaking to people. And so it's a really powerful chakra, even though it's a smaller chakra. It's the smallest chakra. It really, for me, I feel holds a lot of weight for our existence. Because for me, I notice, like with the work that I do around shadow work, communication does lead to freedom, what energetically, and all of the experience that we have, if we're able to verbalize our needs or step into vulnerability or have the hard talks with people. We're not like holding any of this heavy energy in, and we get our answers in those moments rather than holding stuff or projecting it in a negative way. So it's a powerful chakra, in my opinion.
It's very powerful. And this is when we feel, I imagine, some of my own experiences when I was on a corporate team, and how people can feel very shut down in those kind of circumstances. So what do we become? We become passive aggressive. Like, these are just some of my fun buzzwords out there, right? You become passive aggressive, withdrawn, or arrogant or increased anxiety, right? You get anxious about Monday morning having to go back to work. You don't feel heard, you feel oppressed, et cetera, et cetera. And it is our responsibility to speak our truth. And
Right.
and I think sometimes though, that truth can either be coming from that place of oppression, right, where we feel like the victim, or it can come from a place of our deeper truth. And the only way to know our deeper truth is to be in deeper relationship with self. Now, some people do that through meditation. Not everybody likes to meditate. You don't need to.
Right.
Just be
There's
with your
different ways to meditate, really.
right. There are lots of ways, but spending time with yourself, as I said, when you have a feeling, giving yourself a minute to even understand why you're feeling a certain way. This is how you strengthen your relationship with your higher guidance system, your higher
Yeah.
consciousness, your intuition, whatever you want to call it. It does not matter to me. Okay, let's move into the third eye chakra. Oh,
Wait,
and this is right here.
right there. Yeah. Well, your intuition and how you're seeing things, experiencing things. I think like what's really important about this is like, let's say you are trying to see your truth in something and you have all of these experiences affecting that, or things might not always be so clear. I
Yeah.
think that if you have a lot of energy pulling to the surface that is negative around a specific pattern or behavior or experience, and you're trying to see your truth and it throws off that chakra, it can really create a lot of fear in people. I think that it's important to really understand that your perception is just that. It is like we can see things through a broken lens, and understanding that that broken lens is because our reality is based on all of these energies we're talking about, that is creating our reality for us.
Mhm.
I don't know if you
Yeah,
have
and if you guys, I mean, I'm sure, some of you on this, if the people who are tuning in, you've probably heard of Esther Hicks and how she channels Abraham. And there is, I just want to say this, there are so many channels out there doing some really beautiful work, and I learned from all of them. And if you've listened, if you're in this world, then you know there is no human being that is more powerful than another, you guys. Every
any.
single one of us is a creator. We are creating all of the time through our thoughts. And this third eye is our imagination. It is our creation. Um, and as you become more aware of your own energy centers and your vibration, and you're open to what is showing up in your world, you are going to start clearing these out, and your third eye is going to go crazy. Every
Yeah.
time you get these creative sparks, they are coming through you. We are all channels. We are channeling our higher consciousness, is channeling our personality through us every single day. It's
I think
just opening up to it. Go ahead, Val.
I think that like when it comes to what you were saying about imagination, I always, when I'm teaching my shamanic journey class, right? So I always tell people, because everyone thinks they're like doing it wrong when it comes to the third eye. I mean, like everybody, it's a rare occasion where I've worked with someone and they like think they've nailed it all, because like the mainstream information, it's not like it doesn't feel accurate to everybody's experience. So it can also be disheartening, But when it comes to using your third eye, it really what I see as intuition is what somebody else might see as imagination, right? So if I close my eyes and I'm trying to remember something from like going to the beach last summer, and I'm just remembering that, what I'm seeing energetically is me tapping into that moment, following that energy, and then all of a sudden like the vision comes into my mind, right? It's not my imagination that's doing that, it's my third eye. And I think that that can be super like empowering and shifting for a lot of people to understand that, people might use the word imagination as something that's not real, but
But it is. Yeah,
it is, yeah.
exactly. And yeah. And I I work with Valerie because she is so me as a spiritual therapist, Valerie helps to, I work with her to keep my chakras clean and clear so that when I'm working with clients, I'm getting the messages for them and I'm not getting in my own way, right? In the therapeutic world, we call this transference, countertransference, all the same thing. It's being aware when you're being triggered. You guys have heard about, the tail that wags the dog. I think of that as when we're living unconsciously and we react to everything and we don't know why. When you start to get a handle on your energy and your vibration and what you're putting out into the world, you become a master at your own life, because you're never not going to have the negative experience, because we're experiencers, but you're not going to become the experience. You're not going to hang on to it. You're going to let it go like a screen. Right? So you have a negative experience, it moves through you so you can move toward your preference. Like, the kind of people you want surrounding you, the kind of work you want to, the kind of work environment you want to work in, etc.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to the crown.
So the crown for me is just like your understanding, your connection to spirit, your connection to source, your divine knowledge. I believe that we all come here. It very much is like a situation of amnesia where we like literally forget everything. And we're winging it here. And I think that connection to our spiritual self, our higher self, or God, or whatever people want to call it. Everybody could be different. There's no wrong way in the realm of spirituality, where one is right and one religion might be wrong. But yeah, that understanding and knowing, that understanding and connection, and that divine knowledge.
And so in the crown chakra, if you guys, if you feel a blockage, it can come as closed-minded, right?
Yeah.
It can come across as just feeling disconnected, feeling alone, right? Because again, talking about our higher consciousness is always with us. And we get a constant download of communication, and it's just being, open. When we talk about, maybe you guys have heard, you got to surrender to life. Surrendering to life for me doesn't mean waving the white flag, I give up. It's just the opposite. It's opening up to life and opening up to the message, all the messages that, I can't talk, you guys, sorry, all the messages that we get moment to moment. And, I remember I was thinking of a trigger that I wanted to share with you guys. I told you today is the 10th anniversary of my brother's death, and we get triggers a lot when it comes to people that we have lost. It can be a song. I also think that we get messages, but it was just a momentary thing the other night when I was washing a glass, and I remembered this memory that my brother shared with me about a glass that broke, and and all of a sudden I just started to cry, because in that moment, again, it was just this, I was just washing a glass, the memory washed over me, I started to cry, and I understood that this pain, right, that it's still held inside of me somewhere in that memory. And through that moment, I just gave it the space it needed to release. Did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
sometimes like energy is hard to release. We hold it. And I think that and that can create, again, like when we're talking about healing, it's all of those energetic memories that we hold on to know how to experience life. Some of that energy that we're holding on to is low vibrational, right? So I notice even outside of grief being a really dense energy, like when you don't forgive someone or you carry shame within your experience, that can hold a lot of dense energy also, because if you're blaming yourself for something and you're taking on this identity, you can't necessarily let this energy, this heaviness go and have a different experience. It becomes part of who you are, or with forgiveness. If somebody hurt you really deeply and you don't truly forgive them, they always say forgiveness is for yourself. It's never for the other person, because when you don't find that for you, all of that heaviness is still held also. So those are some of the other um, emotions and experiences that can hold some of that denser imprint energy that we have.
And to kind of bring that full circle, when I was talking about how we judge the feelings that we can have, or the experiences that we have, or things that we do, guilt, shame, all of these different ways that we really do beat ourselves up. I often say, if people, the way that we often talk to ourselves, right? Listen to how you speak to yourself, you guys. Most of us would never have a friend that talked to us in the way that we can often talk to ourselves. And in
Yeah.
this idea of self-forgiveness, it's understanding that we are all doing the very best we can given where we are in our own evolution. We're just here to learn about ourselves from a different perspective. And what I mean by that, we are part of all that is, and we individuate in these bodies just to learn about love, because at our essence, that's who we are. And so everything that we do, even if you judge yourself and think you did something that was horrific, it is immediately transmuted to love on the other side. And so again, soothing yourself through this human experience, we're learning. That's what we're here to do. You do not need to judge and beat yourself up. Just love yourself for having the experience and the courage to be here, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because living this life is, it's not an easy journey.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. I think when we talk about shadow work as a whole, there's so many different things that can affect people to be able to step into self-love. And so for me, like I was sharing, it's beyond just this experience. You even have your ancestral experience as well. There's different things that are passed down generationally, not just our looks. That is very much scientifically proven at this point. You look at those studies that have taken place, and I always encourage people to look stuff like this up because it's so fascinating. Where there was like that study with the rodents, and they had there was this generation, and they rang a bell or something like that, and then they shocked the rodent, and then by the third generation, the noise of a bell, they had a visceral reaction without ever having been shocked. They had a reaction to this experience without ever having had the experience. And I think it's a powerful thing for people to understand how much is passed down from generation and generation.
Absolutely, and our souls hold memory. I'll give a really great example of this. This was many, many, many years ago. My father died when I was 10 months old. So you can imagine, my mother was 27. There were three of us under the age of 5. And I had had a couple of glasses of wine. I was playing cards with my husband, and then he said something, and all of a sudden I blurted out, "Why did you leave me?" And he looked at me and he said, "What are you talking about?" And I had this knowing that this came from my mother. And so I talked to my mother about it. And after my father died, she would hold me and she would scream, "Why did you leave me?" I've got chills talking about it because it was a time in my life. I was very young. I was a very young social worker, and I didn't understand any of this stuff. But this is when I started to really embark on this idea of, what is this that I was holding? Where did this come from? And this memory, even at 10 months old, this experience was held in my cells, and it came out for whatever reason. I have no idea to this day why it came out at that particular moment, but it was eerie actually, because it felt so real when I blurted this out of "not to leave me." And so, yeah, it was a phenomenon to me at the time. Do you
I
want
think,
to?
yeah, I think that, yeah, and that was an experience in this life. But then, there's ancestral trauma from generations before. I think that energy healing really dives into some of that stuff that goes beyond this experience that might affect us and have a visceral reaction to. a moment and it just doesn't make sense. It's really interesting in my healing journey. I've had some really kind of strange moments that have come up for me personally where I'm like, why am I acting this way? Like, this doesn't even like, this isn't even me. Why am I feeling this? And like, it can be really confusing. And I always encourage people, like when they have a moment like that, if they are working with a healer, to try to process those moments, because that energy can be cleared out for somebody to have a different experience.
100%. And I think that what you just said is great, because going back to my comment I made earlier, reaction versus responding, that when you do have that trigger, how many times have any of you listening, that you said just what Valerie said, like, what did I do? Like, that wasn't even me. Why did I even say that? And
Yeah.
again, then you start to beat yourself up over it, right? Rather than just to try to understand it, honor it. It was an experience. Because at the end of the day, you guys, we communicate energetically. We're energy. That's what we are. So oftentimes too, it's why you can meet somebody and you can feel like, ooh, I don't really like that energy, or I don't really want to stay at this party, or whatever it is, because we feel things and sense things first, because we're
Right.
feelers. That's what we are. And
Yeah.
it's honoring that.
I wish it was more normal, or socially accepted to understand that part of ourselves, because I think it could really support people's experience in a way that could bring in a lot of healing and understanding. Like, I think questioning those moments can be uh, even healing. So for the work that I do, it really is a lot of processing. So if something doesn't make sense, not just brushing it under the rug, like that was weird, like like, or I'm such a failure and I freaked out and like I'm just a bad person. Like, instead of doing that, if something doesn't feel right, like, ask the questions, find somebody to process with about it, bring in some healing around it, instead of again, sometimes it's not even just honoring the moment or the emotion, but like really sitting with, like, what is going on here? Like, this doesn't feel right. And even with some of the stuff with shadow work, ancestral lines, not even just trauma, different vibrations that we are holding, whether it's abandonment or rejection or whatever else, that energy kind of flowing through us that's passed down generationally affects our experience also.
Yeah, I mean, I realize that this is a huge topic, and we're just sort of scraping the tip of the iceberg right now. But we're hoping that, through our time together and having this show, that you guys are gonna also, you know, give us questions. We want people to come with, maybe something that they're really struggling with. I know it might take courage to jump on the show and share that, but we would love. I mean, we really want this to be real time where we can also help people with whatever you're struggling with.
Yeah.
And that's why we decided to do a live show rather than have it be pre-recorded, because we want to engage. You have something to teach us, we have something to teach you, and we're just in it together. And so we're at the 45-minute mark, and this is recorded, it is going to be posted. But if you guys have any question, or if you'd like to be on the show, right? This is only our second episode. Email us. You can email me at rockyourshine@gmail.com. And Valerie, your email?
Valerie Moon 1111@gmail.com.
And we want to hear from you guys. We know it's going to take a while probably to grow this channel. Like I said, we'll be posting the videos. Share it with people who you think might be interested. And please send us your comments and questions, and we will be responding to those. Before we wind down, Valerie, did you have any other questions from last week that we want to make sure we get to before we end today's episode?
I kind of hope that Lorna Rose, she had a ton of really awesome questions about how energy affects our experience. And I know that I kind of very lightly dove into the past life experience, but I would love to get into that, maybe on a little bit of a deeper level outside of just like generally speaking, how it might affect your chakras or behaviors. But have you ever had like a moment where you have like an irrational fear for absolutely no reason, or, a reaction to something not based on this experience, or, a connection to somebody that like you can't really describe, like, why am I so drawn to this person? Like, how do I feel like have known you for so long? Or why am I scared of spiders and I've never had a negative experience? I think like that understanding of that past life energy and how it can affect this life. I would love for Lorna Rose to kind of hop in on one of the lives so I can go into a little bit more detail about that. But it's like, I feel like it's so much deeper than a couple minutes. But we have infinite amount of time that we are going to just be hopping on answering some of these questions. But Lorna, if you watch the replay, I just want you to know that we will dive into that for sure at some point.
Well, I want to thank, I know we have a few listeners, and thanks guys for hanging with us, spending some time with us. Let us know if, like I said, anything that you want us to talk about, give us some feedback. We are super excited to be able to do this together, me and Valerie, and also to really encourage, as I said, participation. So we will have, I will be posting this. We'll have show notes and where you can find us. So thank you all so very much for being here on Valentine's Day. If you're alone and you're going to just be alone with your Ben and Jerry's tonight in a really good movie, or if you're celebrating with your loved one, enjoy it. Make your own fun, and just celebrate, the love that you have for self today. So love you guys. Thank you for being here, Valerie. Thank you. Bye, guys.